This is Michael Popok, Legal AF After Dark. Speaking of dark, what is going on with Judge Cannon in the Southern District of Florida and the Mar-a-Lago espionage obstruction case against Donald Trump? It is hard to believe that that case is heading for a trial in May. In fact, on the last episode of Legal AF, my co-anchor partner, Ben Meiselas, and me speculated and debated whether that trial is going to happen in May. And if it doesn't, what other trials around the country could slip in right behind it as a backup case. Here we are. Take a listen.
Judge Eileen Cannon right here in Florida with us in the Fort Pierce division. She issued an order on Friday where the headline technically is she's keeping the May 20th, 2024 trial date, and she's moving some of the other dates. But I think we all know better than that and what her real intention is here. Can you break it down what this order said and what she's doing?
I agree with you. I think ultimately the takeaway should not be she's currently holding the trial date. We've always been worried, for those who are just tuning in, we've always been worried that the loose wheel here on this cart of justice, this wheels of justice has been Eileen Cannon. And that even though we were a little bit buoyed and a little bit happy when she set, as did Judge Chutkan, a November 2024 election day trial for Donald Trump, she's done everything since to indicate that you just have to blow on, you just blow, and she's going to move that trial date. It's very unstable. Whereas Chutkan's like, come hell or high water, this is the paraphrase Judge Engoron up in New York a year ago, we're going to trial in March. and the same thing happened in New York with Stormy Daniels. There's also another March 24th trial that's still on the books in New York, I remind people, as what we like to call the backup trial for Donald Trump in a criminal setting related to Stormy Daniels. But the other one out there is the Mar-a-Lago, very simple case, and it's not more complicated because the maintenance worker and the butler valet are also indicted. It's a relatively straightforward case, and either Donald Trump did or did not mishandle and or steal confidential classified national defense information documents to violate the Espionage Act and obstruct justice, or he did or he didn't. Not that hard, the trial to put on. And we still got a lot of time left on the clock to get this case prepared for trial. I mean, cases go to trial quickly. Senator Menendez is going to trial in 4 months after he was indicted. I mean, and that, his potential fraud is not that much more complicated. So we were always a little bit encouraged. But ever since then, especially using the Classified Information Procedures Act, SEIPA, as her wedge, as her fulcrum, she's tried to F up the schedule, whenever, and we compare her unfavorably to Judge Chutkan and how she runs her courtroom on similar issues. So it is a fair comparison. Whereas Judge Chutkan's like, I want fast briefing so I can make a quick and efficient decision to keep the case on track. That's Judge Chutkan. I mean, sometimes we get rulings, we're recording the motion practice as she's ruling behind us, and we have to redo the hot take because we have to. But Cannon's like, this is really hard. Let me take everything off the docket. Throw over. She's like the kid that throws over the game board when she's not doing well. Like, oh, there it goes. Backgammon over. We'll come back to you later and tell you if I'm going to play or not. So she'll just say, we'll just get this weirdo order on her docket that says, all briefings off. We'll revisit this issue another time. And then a week goes by, burning down the candle. And then we'll brief it. And then Donald Trump says, I need another month. Okay, another month. We'll get around to it someday. And then you just see the difference. And then suddenly, when you have 7 months or 6.5 months to a trial, which seemed like a lot before, all of a sudden that candle starts burning from both ends with Judge Cannon. And then she'll say, oh, out of time. Just don't have time to try that case. So right now, she's postponed temporarily and kicked the can down the road until When's that hearing? March? When does she want to do the hearing about May?
She wants to do the scheduling conference now on March 1.
Right.
And so your deadlines, Popok, she went from like October 6th or 9th to the 19th to November 1st. It took her 3 months to even sign the protective order. And then she's now holding a March 1 hearing where she's now saying she's keeping the May date, but she's going to revisit it. But when you look through her scheduling order, she's moved everything now back 3-4 months. It's actually impossible now for her to have it, but it's a charade now that she's got this May 2024 death.
It's like the old joke. What idiot is delaying this trial? Fill in the blank. This one. And it's so obvious, but I love your analysis, and I think it's right. There's a little bit of cat and mouse going on here. It's obvious between Judge Cannon and Fani Willis and Judge McAfee up in Georgia, because I thought, and I was wrong, I thought Fani was going to, like, right after she got all the trials resolved with Chesbro and Powell and her dance card opened for the first quarter of 2024, that she would go into the judge and says, well, we got an opening. Let's do Donald Trump. But she's waiting now to see, because everybody looks at everybody else and says, what is going on with Cannon? I want to slide in there, but I got to see if she'll just get out of the way. It's like when you're trapped behind a car on a road, like, are they going to move over or not? And she's waiting because she has plenty of time to try her case. So as soon as, and Cannon knows that other people are waiting on her, so she's, boxing them out. Like in the NBA, like a rebound, you're like trying to box them out. So she gives Donald Trump what he wants, which is she makes a last minute decision. This is, I know, your point in a very good hot take. She makes a last minute decision like in April for May, and that doesn't leave Fani Willis or other people time to slide in behind her.
So she thinks.
So she thinks. So give your point. I like your point on that. Make your point.
Yeah, I think that in Judge Cannon's very short-sighted, lacking judicial temperament mindset, I've always said I thought her corruption's matched by her incompetence. I think her strategy is, let me protect this time period from May, June, July, August. Really, Judge Cannon thinks that there is a possibility, and we'll talk about the Judge Chutkan Washington, D.C. case in a little bit, that the Washington, D.C. case could potentially get kicked, even though it's scheduled for March 4th of 2024. And we'll talk about some of the motions and Donald Trump's strategy there of filing multiple motions to dismiss to try to get multiple bites at the apple to try to draw a DC Circuit Court of Appeal 3-judge panel that may stay the case and delay that March deadline, right? So Judge Cannon is thinking there's a chance, even though I screwed this up by setting the trial date in May, allowing Judge Chutkan to get the March date, if some DC Circuit Court of Appeal panel steps in, I may then be the next trial. There is the Manhattan District Attorney case, but she may say, I may be the next federal trial, and I want to preserve and protect these dates for now that no one else encroaches in my territory, so that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, if Fani Willis tries to set the trial date now in that May-June period, Trump can argue, look, Judge McAfee in Georgia, look at what Judge Cannon set her trial then. There's no way, McAfee, you can set your trial. You're a state court judge. You've got to respect that a federal judge has set a trial date in this period of time. That's why Cannon is keeping the trial date when she knows that based on her scheduling order, that isn't the trial date that could possibly take place. And Trump's lawyers know that as well. And Jack Smith knows that as well. But Popok, I think one of the things that we'll see in the next week or two, though, is Fani Willis, I think, was patiently waiting to see what happened there. And Fani Willis has been aggressive, appropriately aggressive. I can see Fani Willis next week, Fulton County District Attorney, now asking for a trial date in, let's say, mid-June, right? And say, this is a simple case. Number one, we were waiting for the certainty. Judge Cannon says that's the date. Set this trial date for June or maybe even July, Popok, right? And set it for July. And then I think Fani Willis is going to argue, well, not only do we think that even if Judge Cannon's case is not heard on, even if Judge Cannon's case goes and we could hear this case in June or July, but even if it's the opposite way, there's no way Judge Cannon's case could even really be heard in 2024. So we think that this date should be safe anyway. And Judge McAfee, just do what the judge in the Manhattan District Attorney case against Donald Trump for the hush money payments is doing. Set the trial date, and then let's see what happens. And if there truly is a conflict, we could deal with the conflict when that happens, but set the trial date for sometime this summer.
Yeah, I think I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was saying that's, I think, what the next response is going to be by Fani Willis.
They have a blueprint for this, and that's Judge Merchan. We talked a lot about Judge Chutkan coordinating, as she's allowed to do under the judicial canons of ethics, and her staff coordinating with Merchan's staff. It's been reported. The staff in New York already reported there was a phone call, and Judge Merchan graciously yielded, but did not take that trial date for Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump of the hush money affair off the books. And so there's your model for it. It's only a conflict when it becomes a conflict. And until it's a conflict, it's just a date on a calendar. And so I think I like where you're going with this. I don't think there's any other really slot if she's going to respect Judge Chutkan, which I said Judge Chutkan was going to Bigfoot everybody in a good way and just box them out and say, this is my March, April, May is mine, which always overlapped a little bit potentially with Mar-a-Lago, but not a point that anybody, that the judges even cared about. You could tell Chutkan didn't care about the canon. That's why she set the date in March. I'll take March. And so, yeah, I think McAfee, cognizant of giving Donald Trump whatever due process he deems appropriate under Georgia constitutional law, is going to have to find a date for him. And then Fani's going to have to decide. Fani's going to have to decide whether she's going to try anybody else to pick up your point, Ben, before Donald Trump, because I don't think she's going to burn 3/4 of 2024 and not do another case. Well, I know she's continuing to flip people, but there is a group of people she's never going to flip, like Giuliani. She's never going to flip. Probably Jeff Clark. She's never going to flip. And I could, Meadows. I don't know at this particular moment, but there's at least 3 that I don't think she's ever going to flip. So she's going to try them first, and then put more pressure on Donald Trump because they're going to lose, or is she just going to? You don't think she burns a whole year not doing anything until June, do you?
No, I think that Fani Willis is going to now that she understands Cannon's game, she's going to come in and she's going to make a request, and I think it's going to be an aggressive request. One of the ways that also, though, that you see Judge Cannon's feelings towards the special counsel's office and the Department of Justice. First, she doesn't refer to them as the government, really. She refers to them always as the Office of Special Counsel. And then she blames the Office of Special Counsel for the fact that there wasn't a SCIF in the Fort Pierce division where she sits, a sensitive compartmented information facility to review classified documents, which is now being built. First off, it took her about 3 months to sign the SEIPA, Classified Information Procedures Act protective order. Second, given the magnitude of this case, what she should do is hold the case in Miami, where there is a SCIF, which is all kind of relatively, it wouldn't be that inconvenient if you did it in Miami. And also, she seems to constantly act like the government is doing something wrong when the government says, this document is so highly sensitive that it needs to be looked at in Washington, D.C. We can't transport this document out of D.C. It needs to stay where it is based on the guidance of the sensitive classified information officer who's on the case, who's within the intelligence community, who's handling it. And she's like, well, I won't deem that served by the government until you get it here to Fort Pierce. And it's like, what she is aiding and abetting is this concept called gray mail, where she's basically trying to taunt and say to the Department of Justice, not just taunt, but with her actions say, well, maybe you basically dismiss the case. We won't have to deal with this discovery violation that I may find you in. So that's what Judge Cannon is doing there. But I want to go from Cannon right now to what's going on in Judge Tanya Chutkan's court in Washington, D.C. You'll recall Southern District of Florida, Mar-a-Lago document case, willful retention of national defense information, obstruction of justice, making false statements. The Washington, D.C. case is Trump's efforts to overthrow the results of the 2020 election. And Trump filed a flurry of motions there, motions to dismiss. There's motions relating to the gag order. All of these motions by Donald Trump are frivolous, but the overall intent is one thing. And special counsel Jack Smith repeats it over and over again, which is delay, delay, delay. And so let me walk you through Trump's strategy here. Normally, if you were going to bring a motion to dismiss, you would have kind of the various subject matters within your motion to dismiss would be different kind of subheadings or topics within your motion to dismiss. So you would say motion to dismiss the case, and then you would say based on constitutional and statutory grounds, if that's what you were arguing, based on vindictive prosecution, meaning you are being specifically targeted where nobody else is being targeted this way, on the basis of double jeopardy, on the basis of presidential immunity. You know, there are all of these grounds. But rather than bring them as one motion, Donald Trump brought them as 4 or 5 different motions to dismiss. And then Trump also filed a motion to strike inflammatory allegations in the complaint by basically saying his association with these other insurrectionists would otherwise inflame a jury. I'll talk more about that in a bit. And so Trump's the strategy is file all of these motions, where a pellet gun kind of goes everywhere. And hopefully you draw, one of them hits, you get a DC Circuit Court. They know they're not going to win before Judge Chutkan, but maybe you get a DC Circuit Court of Appeals panel that does something that it shouldn't do and it stays the case. Or maybe you have multiple chances now to go to the Supreme Court, and maybe you get them to try to stay the case until after the election. That's Trump's sole strategy. Do everything you can to derail that case. And special counsel Jack Smith filed at least one of them as an omnibus opposition, the way Trump tries to spread them out. The counter strategy is you put him back together as an omnibus opposition. What I think Judge Chutkan's going to do, realizing that Trump is spreading out these motions, is to try to consolidate the order that she ultimately makes as one order, or maybe 2, but dealing with multiple motions. So when Donald Trump tries to make them multiple motions, she tries to pack it together again so it's one appealable order ultimately when he does that. We'll see if that's what Judge Chutkan's is ultimately going to do. But I want to go through with you what Jack Smith's response was to each, because this was some of the best legal writing that I've seen, just objectively, like just really, really, really powerful oppositions. And the one where special counsel Jack Smith's even saying, look, Donald Trump's singing songs with these insurrectionists. And he's saying it's inflammatory that we mention insurrectionists and his relationship to them in the indictment. I mean, he's doing one thing outside and then he's acting like in this court that he's, an entirely different person. And going back to what we said earlier in this episode, to me, it's like, look, Trump, if you're singing songs with the insurrectionists, if you're no longer even saying stand back and stand by for the Proud Boys, if you're saying, hey, let's make a song together and let's collect royalties by releasing our track about a terrorist attack on the Capitol, if you're a big tough guy and that's your shtick, then say it in court, then stand by it. But they're such weak losers also that they don't do that. And that's how you know ultimately there's an intent to deceive. Just have a consistent voice in all of the locations that you're in, outside of court, inside of court.
Well, if you're new to Legal AF, welcome. If you know about us already as content only on the MeidasTouch network, welcome back. If you've been looking for a way to get other people interested in listening or watching Legal AF and you didn't want to have them just sit through an entire hour-long podcast, here's a great appetizer. Send them that clip. Ask them to join. If you like that, you're going to love what we do on Wednesdays. I do it with Karen Friedman Ignifilo. Saturdays there with Ben Meiselas. And we do it in only one place, the MeidasTouch Network, using our 75 years of collective legal experience to bring you our best guess estimate and analysis at the intersection of law, politics, and justice. So until my next hot take, until my next legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Hey Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.